everybody. Welcome to another Tiff Talks. Today I have a good friend of mine, Cody Ray DesBiens. How you doing?
Doing good, Tiff. Great to see you.
Good to see you. One thing that I love doing about Tiff Talks, I know it's kind of a new series, but one of the things I love doing is I bring on guests that have a story to tell. Last time I had a good friend, Karen Peabody, who is a trauma therapist, and so we talked about how emotional trauma really affects us, and sometimes with emotional trauma we can get blocked at certain times in our lives. So I wanted to have you on as a guest because it's been forever since I've seen you. So first of all, it has. But something really miraculous happened to you, and it was last week, was it? Or 2 weeks ago?
April 5th.
So April 5th, Cody celebrated
6 years.
6 years.
Cancer-free.
Of cancer-free. So, woo! I think that's amazing. Yeah, 6 years of cancer-free. And, unfortunately, cancer has affected the majority of people that we come across on a daily basis, including myself.
Yeah.
And so, there was one thing that's a little bit different with you. And this is why I wanted you to come on to share your story, because I think a lot of people might actually get some healing from your story.
I hope so.
I think they will.
That's
I
why
really
love
do.
talking about it.
I really do. So I'm gonna let you have at it.
All right.
Okay.
Let's do it.
Let's go.
So I was diagnosed with cancer on October 20th, 2011. They gave me 2 weeks to live. Life flashed before my eyes. They started treatment right away. Put me in ICU. Chemo worked for about a year and a half, almost. Then everything stopped working. My last hope was a bone marrow transplant. So they looked on the registry. If you're not part of the bone marrow registry, with bethematch.org, please sign up. If it wasn't for that one person, I wouldn't be sitting here right now. Crazy.
I can't even imagine.
I know.
I can't imagine the emotions you go through and the feeling of you really are just waiting on that one person, that one donor, in hopes that something happens.
Yeah, absolutely. It was the longest 2 weeks of my life waiting for them to find somebody. But thankfully they did, and I had the transplant on April 5th, 2013.
6 years ago.
6 years. It works. So when you have a transplant, you basically have no immune system. They kill off everything. It's like being born again. They actually call it your rebirth day. I have to get all my shots again, so you have no immune system. Just like a baby has no immune system, and you have to build it up.
And that's why they say, because I've had friends that have gone through this, where you can't leave. I mean, you visitors, you can have visitors, you can have pretty much anything.
For a full year after the transplant, you can't be in public places, things like that. Everybody has to wear a mask if they come and talk to you. Transplant went great. About almost a year later, on January 8th, 2014 is when this episode happened. A few days before that.
Well, I just want to interrupt for 1 second.
Sure.
Just because we're moving right along, I know the videos are usually a little under 20 minutes, and so he pretty much just told his major emotional traumatic experience in less than 2 minutes. So I don't want you to think we're downplaying his experience in any way.
No. Yep.
It's definitely not something where it's a rush. This is what happened and this is how we feel and everybody's great. It doesn't work that way. And the fact that, again, I've been to benefits for you. We've come together as a community to help kind of just raise your spirits and do things for you and get you along those traumatic years. So from 2011 to 2013, that's a long time to go through that emotional trauma and experience.
Absolutely. It was a tough time for sure.
So you think you're out of the clear at this point in 2013?
Yeah, absolutely.
Or 2011, sorry.
Yeah, so it was 2000. Yeah, 2013 was transplant. Yeah. So now 2014, almost a year later.
Oh, it's 2014.
Yeah,
Okay,
so
sorry.
we're in 2014. Yep. So I'm almost hitting that year mark. So I'm almost getting ready to see people again and talk to people, be around people. I had this port. So when you're diagnosed with cancer, most people, they get a port right on your chest here. And it's basically, 2 tubes, easy access for blood transfusions and platelets and fluids if you need fluids. And I had to check my temperature constantly to make sure I don't have a fever. So on January 5th, I believe it was, I checked my temperature and I have a fever of about 101. I didn't tell anybody because at this point I'm sick of doctors. I don't want to go back to the hospital. I'm happy to be at home now. Next day happens, the 6th, January 6th. I check my temperature, it's up to about 103. So it's slowly getting higher and higher. Still not telling anybody, which is a big mistake. Big mistake. January 7th comes and now I'm shaking. My mom notices this. She takes my temperature. It's about 106 now. Dangerously high. You can die at a temperature that high. So she sends me, we go to the hospital. And it's late at night on the 7th, and my grandfather was really sick at the time. So I said, Ma, just go home and come back in the morning with Dad. And I feel great. It just had this temperature. So immediately they put me on an ice bed to try dropping the temperature down. And they're doing tests to figure out why I have a temperature, see if there's something wrong, obviously an infection somewhere. They find out I have a blood infection. It's caused from this port. So they have to take the port out as soon as possible. So they come in and tell me, and they say they're going to do surgery as soon as possible to take this out. And they say that there's a high risk of a blood clot going to my heart now because of this infection and everything else. Yeah. So now they're trying to call my parents to tell them to come back. And we happen to get a blizzard that night. So now there's rush hour traffic, I believe it was a Wednesday, and the blizzard is causing chaos on the highway, so they don't make it in time for me to go down to the operating room. And I've been put to sleep, at least 10 times over this 3-year period because they had to do spinal taps to check the bone marrow, different tests like that. So I knew all the people in the emergency room, and unfortunately there was a few mistakes that were made that morning. On their part, unfortunately, everybody makes mistakes, which is totally understandable, but this just happened to be a really bad one. So there was a shortage of the drug that they usually put me to sleep with. So they had to use a totally new drug that I never had before. And the big mistake was they didn't hook me up to a heart monitor that morning. The only thing I had on was a pulse ox machine, which measures your oxygen levels. So they put the drug in, and immediately it felt like an elephant landed on my chest, and I knew something was wrong, and I go to sleep. Keep in mind that these 5 people that are in here have no idea, that I'm having a reaction to this. I'm allergic to this medicine. So I go to sleep, there's this big flash, and I'm now in the corner of this operating room, looking down on myself laying in the stretcher, and these 5 doctors and nurses and assistants standing around me. I'm able to hear everything that's going on. I'm able to see everything that they're doing. One person's unbuttoning the buttons on this Johnny to access this area. Another person's talking about their new BlackBerry phone that they had just got. Another person's picking up a pair of scissors that has, a 45-degree angle on the end of them.
What was your emotion at this point?
So I'm like, wow, I'm surprised. I'm like, what's going on? But it's hard to explain, but I was in a state of mind that this was right. Like I wasn't scared, if that makes sense.
Was it like serene for you?
Yeah,
or
it was like everything's, I'm just trying to figure everything out and why I'm, up here looking down there. Of course it's shocking, but this is all going on. It felt like minutes, but it was only a matter of seconds, maybe about 8 seconds that I'm listening to this conversation and seeing myself. Then there's another big flash. And this group of people, it's like somebody turned the brightness up on a television really high. This group of about 20 people is sliding forward toward me. Maybe about 10 feet away, they stop and they're all waving like this. Not saying a word to me, just looking at me and waving. And I remember looking down at myself and trying to raise my right hand to wave back, and I can't lift my hand. So I say, I'm sorry, I can't wave back. And they just wave, and they slowly glide backwards and disappear. There's another bright flash, and everything goes black. It had to be about 5 seconds that everything's just black, and I'm in this, emptiness. And this is where I'm starting to think, I'm like, wow, my mom's not here yet. I've been, involved in, paranormal investigations for a while. Right. And, I've communicated with spirit, through different knocking and voices and things like that. And I remember thinking to myself, what can I knock on to get somebody's attention? How can I talk? Nobody's here that can hear me. And then as I'm thinking this, there's another flash, and now I feel myself laying down again. but now I'm gliding. I feel myself like gliding down diagonally back into it. I feel this bump. I'm apparently on the stretcher now. I had never moved from the stretcher to begin with, but I feel like I've landed on the stretcher again.
Landed back into your body.
Yeah, and I'm paralyzed. I'm totally alert. I'm totally awake inside, but I can't move anything. I can't talk, can't do anything. My eyes are still closed, but I hear my mom's voice, and I hear a nurse that's talking to her. They're talking about, you know, how come he hasn't woken up yet, you know, everything else. And so it had to be about an hour to 2 hours that I started, you know, making little humming noises. That was the first thing I could do. And now they're starting to ask yes or no questions, and I'm humming. I'm trying to go yes. I'm stuttering, and slowly everything's starting to come back. I'm starting to move my toes a little bit, and now I'm in shock about, you know, what had just happened. And what had happened was, you know, I was allergic to the medicine, and the way they found out that there was a problem was my oxygen level dropped dangerously low. My heart was stopping, and once they figured that out, they were able to give a drug to reverse everything, start everything back up again. You know, later they were able to do, you know, EKGs and heart tests to figure out, you know, that there was an arrhythmia now, and, you know, the heart had problems.
So your heart had stopped on the table.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and I didn't want to talk about this experience that I had gone through with anybody because I was just in shock. A couple days later, I start telling the story. And of course, you know, none of the nurses and doctors are believing what I'm saying. Until I start talking about the BlackBerry phone that one doctor was talking about.
Right, I was going to say they're probably thinking, oh, he's probably on a lot of medication
Absolutely.
right now. So
Absolutely. And I started talking about all the steps that they were taking and the order that they were taking them, what they were talking about, and then, you know, I see their eyes getting big, and they're believing me now. And there's people in suits coming down, you know, from the higher ups in the hospital that are asking questions, and, you know, everybody makes mistakes. I knew all these people; they're my friends.
You've been there so frequently,
yeah,
so
yeah, and I was just glad to be alive and able to tell the story. So, so it was unbelievable. It was unbelievable. There was a second time. Unfortunately, there was a second time.
Oh my gosh.
Where I was given a drug and I had anaphylactic shock, but nothing like this happened. You know, they were able to catch it before, you know, my heart stopped and everything like that. But this was the time that, you know, it was just unbelievable. There's no doubt in my mind that there's something after, you know, our life here on Earth. I just had that feeling when this all happened that everything was going to be okay. And, you know, these people that were coming forward, you know, were here to help me out, whether they, you know, were able to push me back down into that bed or just let me know that everything was going to be okay if that's where I was going. I believe everything happens for a reason. And maybe that reason that all this happened was for me to tell you the story and to have them listen.
And it's healing because when so many people come to me for readings, a lot of the readings I give, they'll bring up the fact of, you know, let them know when I had passed, I saw them kissing my forehead. Let them know that I saw them playing with my hair, or, you know, they will show these certain validations that have happened because I truly believe, especially with you telling your story, they were at a certain point in the room watching down on them.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Now, when you saw that big group of people coming forward, do you think they were your spirit guides, or is it somebody that you recognized? I mean, did they have clothes? Were they just light impressions? What was it for you?
Sure. So I recognized a few of the people. There was about 3 people. One of them was my great-grandmother that I had met when I was younger. I recognized her. There was a gentleman in a wheelchair. Everybody was wearing clothes, but I could only see them from about the knees up. It sounds unbelievable, but it was like, you know, like a fog was blocking them from their knees down. And you know, months later, I'm feeling a lot better now. I'm at home, obviously, and I start thinking about these people and looking through old albums and things like that. I remember this particular woman had a dress on with polka dots on it, and this woman happened to be my great grandmother on my mom's side, and that's the dress that she was buried in.
Wow.
And she had passed away long before I was born. And there was a couple times like that. There was a gentleman I remember in like an army coat. He was my grandmother's brother, which was my great uncle, which I had never met, but he was alive while I was alive, but unfortunately passed away.
And I always notice that too. A lot of times when people come to me, it may be their great grandparents or a great aunt that they've never met. But I always say it doesn't matter, they're still here with you.
Absolutely.
And they're still going to come through just to show that we are never truly alone.
Absolutely.
So by having this experience, you've now increased your, there's so much more we could talk about, but you are now doing a ton of work with paranormal
Absolutely.
stuff.
Absolutely.
So you do stuff with the Atlantic Paranormal Society, better
Sure.
known as TAPS.
Yeah.
And then also Rise Up Paranormal out of Rhode Island.
Yeah.
So they're constantly doing events, and I'm sure you use your own experiences as a radar. I always say our body is our best form of like figuring out if we can sense spirit.
Absolutely. And it's strange because I was involved in paranormal before I was diagnosed with cancer and things like that. I went through all this experience. And after all of these experiences, I definitely feel a better connection. I don't think I'm, a medium like the gift that you have, but I can definitely, from doing this a lot, I definitely feel when something is there. And we do go to a lot of, homes where people are scared. And, Grant Wilson always said this, and it stuck with me. Fear is just a lack of knowledge. And, these people are... These people are scared, and we go in and just calming them down and telling them everything's going to be okay, and sometimes sharing, this story helps them out a lot, helps them be comfortable with what's going on, because these are just people.
Right.
There's a lot of misconceptions out there with the television right now that everything's bad. These are
I
just
always
people.
say that because people will say, "Oh, we thought you'd wear a lot of makeup," or "Where's your cloak?" And I'm like, "No, what are you?"
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So there definitely is, a better connection, especially with helping people out. It's amazing.
And that's what we're here to do. And with wrapping everything up, I want to thank you so much for being on another show of Tiff Talks. If you guys go to my YouTube channel, Spirit Medium Tiffany, if you dig deep, there's pictures and videos of Cody, because I had my show Spirit Connections with Tiffany, and he was on, and he was actually interviewing me. So you definitely can find him online. Also, if someone wanted to reach out to you to just maybe say, thank you for sharing your story, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Well, Facebook is a great way. Cody Ray DesBiens on Facebook. Or you can send me an email, codydesbien@yahoo.com. Either way works. I'll add you as a friend on Facebook or answer your messages. And don't be afraid to ask anything about, cancer. If you're going through something similar, I'm totally comfortable about talking about everything.
Thank you so much.
So, feel free to get in contact.
And I'll definitely have Cody at the shop because you do so much more. And again, I know we do less than 20 minutes here on the Tiff Talks. So he has a whole line of stuff paranormal related. So I would love to have you come visit the shop and inform and let people know all the stuff that you do. And he has a crazy Elvis impersonation, so we have a whole story with that too. So Cody, thank you so much. Congratulations on just being alive and being here and having all of May sound asleep per usual on your lap.
What a privilege.
Yes. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
And you guys always remember, we are never truly alone, and I hope you have a fabulous week. Thanks guys for watching.